Well, Gandalf the White is a bit of a bore, frankly. I know he's cut his hair and he's shaved a bit, and he looks rather nice in his white, but Peter Jackson and I always preferred Gandalf the Grey. You know, because he likes a smoke and a drink and a boogie with the hobbits. He's just a bit more humane than the driven commander who's Gandalf the White. I wanted to have a scene in the film where we saw Gandalf getting up in the morning, because I don't know if you've noticed, nobody ever washes in Middle-earth. You'll never see them really going to bed, and I'd love to see what sort of pyjamas Gandalf wears. He probably doesn't have any. He's so dirty. He sleeps in his robe and everything. But and I want
2 more films to go. I mean, we can.
Yes, and I know. And we're going back to do 5 more weeks of work. And I've said to Peter, can we not have a scene where we see Gandalf getting up in the morning, lighting his first pipe, and then going to have a pee against a nice big New Zealand native tree? I'm just thinking in 3 dimensions.
I'm doing an essay on Gandalf in comparison him to Dumbledore, and in terms of... No, I read your interview in the Times, and I'm not even going to go there. Of course, Gandalf is the greater wizard. But in terms of, like, character study and, like, Tolkien, where did he get the idea of Gandalf from? Because of the grey beard and the archetype of, like, Merlin. Where did your character studies... Like, where did you go with it?
We all know where J.K. Rowling got Dumbledore from, don't we? It's perfect obvious. I mean, I see big posters for the last Harry Potter movie with Mike Gambon, and I do a double take because I think it's me. I went to see him in a play recently. I said, Mike, just tell me, do you ever get mistaken for me? Because people are always coming up to me and saying thank you for the Harry Potter movie. He said, oh, all the time, Ian. And I said, what? I said, well, what do you do about it? He said, I just sign your name. But where did he get the wizard from? Well, yes, they are Merlin, I think probably, yes. And the pointy hat, I don't know. I think that the miracle of Tolkien as a writer is that he can take a sort of archetype of the wizard and divide it up between Saruman, the wizard Saruman, the wizard Gandalf, and now in this movie you'll see Doctor Who #7, Sylvester McCoy as Radagast the Brown, perhaps the most charming of all the wizards. There are a couple of blue wizards who engagingly Gandalf says that he can't quite remember their names, and that's because Tolkien didn't give them any names. And takes this standard notion of a wizard and divides it into 4 and gives them each a personality. So I didn't do any research. In fact, the only research I did was I went back to Tolkien and I listened to him reading a little bit of The Hobbit and not very impressive it was, but it was rather overacted. I'm a one to talk, but you can hear his voice, too much pipe smoking and rather patrician because he used to teach at Oxford University. So I just sort of took that and built on it a little bit. I think he's just such a humane character. He may be 7,000 years old. You know, he may have been sent by down to look after the people of Middle Earth, but he's become one of them really, and that's why I like him so much. So I think that's probably Tolkien's contribution to wizardry is the idea that wizards are actually like the rest of us in certain respects.
So we know in The Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship all got tattoos together, apart from Jonathan Rhys Davies. And I was just wondering who initiated that idea, and were you very accepting of it? Did it take much persuading to get it?
No, I didn't take any persuading. I thought it was a lovely idea, and any chance I could get to hang out with Orlando Bloom, frankly. So we went down to a tattoo artist in the Cuba Mall in Wellington. All the fellowship went down together, and we could choose what part of our bodies we had tattooed. Mine is just there. Orlando's, I think, is down there, and Elijah Woods is about there, really. And I held his hand all the way through. The only person who wouldn't have it done was the dwarf, John Rhys Davis.
You're my secret mad, he said. You can't go and have some mad Maorin with a bit of broken glass, giving you terrible diseases. It's no, he wasn't doing it. It's absolutely dangerous. I'm not going anywhere near it.
So he didn't, and the next thing I heard about John was that he was desperate to take his weight off and he had his stomach stapled together. Well, I thought, really, if the tattoo wouldn't do him any harm. And I don't think it's done me now. No, but we didn't get anything this time. We had a ring made, and I'm sorry I'm not wearing it tonight. The dwarves designed a ring, and I got one with some Gandalf insignia on the inside. I've also got one of the bee rings, you know. But I couldn't bring it tonight because obviously you wanted to see me, and there'd be no point if I was wearing a ring.
Was there a big difference between the atmospheres of filming the previous movies and this movie? Just, you know, how close you were or something along those lines?
Yes, no, I don't think there was. I mean, it all comes from the top, doesn't it? And the top, in this case, is Peter Jackson. And he runs the whole outfit as if it's a family reunion somehow. His live-in partner, Fran Walsh, writes the scripts with him. Her best friend, Philippa Bowens, writes the screenplay with them. Their kids, Billy and Kate, were both in Fellowship of the Ring. Katie wants to be an actress now. You all live very close together because Wellington's a small place. Peter's a great host, and you often see him at weekends around at his house and so on. So it's sometimes felt as if you're making the most expensive home movie ever made. But that atmosphere continued. I suppose the basic difference of the cast was that last time round it was rather young. I mean, the four Beatles, the four Hobbits, and Orlando, and they were sort of the driving engine of it all. And this time round, the dwarves, well, there are some young ones, but they're mainly middle-aged. Martin Freeman's a bit older than Elijah was, and so they're a little bit more staid, so I didn't feel quite so out of it as I sometimes did when the Hobbits were going off to surf and stay up all night. And, yeah. But no, it was basically the same. A very, very friendly atmosphere.
First of all, I don't know if you've read Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but if you have, do you feel as though Tolkien would be proud of the films? And second of all, can we be friends?
We can be friends. I haven't seen you yet, but I love the sound of your voice. Just going back to that little bit of Tolkien overacting in his reading of a little bit of The Hobbit, I got the impression that he would not have been averse to the idea of these stories written down by him being dramatized in some way. And after all, he sold the rights for the film to be made, albeit to pay off his tax. But and that there are elder members of the Tolkien estate, the clan, who think that somehow there's a purity in the books which we are disturbing by making them into films. But the younger members of the family don't feel that. And I suspect Tolkien would have been in favour of it. And I put that to his granddaughter recently, and she said, oh, he'd have loved it. He used to be an amateur actor. So I think he would have been very interested, and perhaps he would have got involved in writing the scripts, who knows. But it has been the fate of many great novelists to have their works put onto the screen, whether it's Jane Eyre or Charles Dickens and John le Carré and plays too. I mean, Shakespeare put on the screen. But I think the defence is always that Shakespeare's plays remain to be done on the stage, and Jane Austen and Charles Dickens and J.R.R. Tolkien can still be read, and are read. I mean, I was going through an airport the other day, and The Hobbit was #1 in the bestsellers, so that shows that the films are bringing people back to the books.
In a duel, do you think you could beat Voldemort as Gandalf the Grey?
I think that's the question we've all been asking ourselves.
I don't know who Voldemort is, frankly. But I'm sure Gandalf could see him off. He doesn't have that many magical powers, and Gandalf's powers only really work when he needs them to work. In other words, he puts into his, it's his spirit that informs his innate magic, and I think Gandalf's spirit is superior to any other wizard that I've come across, and I think that's what would make him defeat anybody in those wretched Potter movies. Or even see Magneto off, actually.
Peter Jackson's a big fan of the high frame rate technology. I was just wondering what you think of it and whether you can see a big difference.
Well, I've seen the movie now twice, and the question was about the 48 frames per second, which is a sort of projection which is closer to how the human eye normally functions. The human eye functions apparently at 60 frames per second. We're used to 24 frames per second, and Peter Jackson is pioneering now something halfway between the two. My eyes are rather old. I've seen the film twice. I couldn't tell any difference. It all looked as magical to me as the first movie. What I adored was the 3D, and that's what I think you're going to see now. And his use of 3D is so subtle and so dramatic, and so it seems at times necessary that you think this is the way all films must be done in the future. Personally, 48 frames per second, I can leave it or take it, and I think you're not going to see 48 frames per second. But before we go, I just want to say, because I'm in a fundraising mood, and after this screening, you can have your photograph taken in the mezzanine. Now, that's not much fun, is it? But let me show you what you can be photographed with. You can be photographed wearing the hat. This is the hat I wore. Try it on. You put it on.
I'm the model. So there we are. You too can wear the hat.
Here's the Gandalf's staff.
And now you've seen each other. Perfect.
So if you want your photograph taken with the staff, and I've also got lantern, there it is. It would make a perfect Christmas card, or even a Christmas present for your grandparents. And I just hope you enjoy the movie half as much as we enjoyed making, and thanks very much for coming tonight.